And that approach was a major contributor to getting their cost per lead down to sub £15 within 6 months, especially when you think that a lot of their competitors would be paying that much just for a click. So that just goes to show that sometimes the solution is already there, it's just hiding in plain sight. This is the B2B Performance Marketing Podcast by Webmarketer, here to help you make the right moves with your B2B advertising. No spin, no smoke and mirrors, just honest insights from the advertising front line.
We're really passionate about helping small or under-resourced B2B marketing teams. So this podcast isn't about adding more to your to-do list, it's about helping you get more from what's already on it. Welcome back. I'm Mylian.
And I'm Louis. It's time for your favourite word, Miley. Today we're going to be talking about strategy. Do you want to share a little bit about why strategy is such a bugbear for you?
Yeah, so my issue here isn't so much with the word strategy, it's about how it's used and how it means different things to different people. So when one person is talking about strategy, they probably think that everyone else is on board with what they're thinking. But in reality, everyone is probably thinking something a little different. So the issue for me here is that there's no default definition.
Yeah, I totally get that. And I guess a good place to start is to give this a bit of definition. Today, B2B advertising strategy is going to mean the thinking behind your advertising. So instead of just running ads, you're carving out a specific approach, and the strategy is the rationale behind the what and the why. And this applies whether you're just starting out advertising or whether you've been doing it for years already. And just a note, this is actually going to be the first part in a 2-part series. Today, we're going to be getting into a bit of groundwork around what strategy is and why it's important. And then in the next episode, we're going to do an open book run through of our process for building strategies here at Webmarketer. Today, we've got a few case studies to share with you where a simple strategy change made a huge impact on performance. But first, let's get into that groundwork we talked about earlier.
For me, the best strategy is a simple one. Really complicated strategies are often just a collection of tactics. The strategy is the bit that sits at the top and ties everything nicely together. You'd use a strategy as a guide to decide which tactics to use and which ones not to. It's not a 50-point checklist. It can be as simple as how you're going to approach something and why. There was this LinkedIn post that me and Louis saw ages ago that was such a brilliant way of picking which channels to use and when. I wish I could remember who posted it so that we could give them credit, but it went something like this. If there's existing demand, use search. If there's no demand, then use social. And if you've got more time than money, then use organic. But if you've got more money than time, use paid. Now, obviously, this won't give you a fully fleshed out strategy, but it will definitely start you off in the right direction. And you can assess this yourself by seeing if there's loads of high intent, relevant searches. If there is, then you can start with search. And if there isn't, then you should be starting with social. Essentially, if there's already demand, then you're going to have to lean into it. And if there isn't, you're going to have to generate it yourself. We often talk about making sure that you're not running 100 miles in the wrong direction. So if you're trying to make search work when no one's searching, you could be spending way too much time and way too much money sending the wrong traffic with nothing to show for it.
Another key ingredient in ad strategy work is really leaning into your edge. Too many businesses start with the audiences that they can target and then go straight from there into creating ads. But actually, the step before that is deciding who you want to speak to outside of targetable audiences and what they care about, which determines what you're going to say. Just like we covered in our last episode where we talked about promise. You might be the most competitively priced, you might be the fastest to implement, you might have the biggest upside, you might be the most comprehensive, or you might be a specialist in a world of generalists. The funny thing is that each of these could be an edge for different businesses in the same industry. Each one will speak to a different type of customer with different challenges, different priorities, and different needs. The most competitively priced will probably attract the most price-sensitive customers, the fastest to implement, probably the most impatient, and the biggest upside, probably those with the highest expectations. And it goes on, you get the picture. But as well as speaking to the right audience with the right promise, you also have to look at solving the right problem with your strategy, whether that's solving a problem for the business or for the customer. Let's run through a few examples. Now, we won't name names and industries for now, but we are really looking forward to inviting guests on to share their own real-world case studies in the future. Miley, did you want to kick us off with the first one?
Yeah, so one of our clients served a large geo here that was mostly small town. Through conversations with the client, we quickly learned that businesses from these small towns preferred working with other local businesses. So we came up with a way of positioning them as a local business at scale without having to create 20 different landing pages. The strategy here was to combine a bunch of different dynamic features. We used dynamic text in the headlines and the body copy of the landing pages. We also used dynamic location insertion for the text on the search ads. We created ad groups for each town and then added a final URL suffix containing the town name that the landing page could call in. That way, when someone searched for business type in town name, then the ads would call in that town name. The landing page headline would also include the town name, and so would the body copy. So one ad template and one landing page for 20 different towns. This small but powerful hyperlocal strategy resulted in a 300% increase on their conversion rates.
The next client was in a completely different industry with a completely different challenge. When they came to us, they were spending over £100 per lead and their target was below £75. So they were looking for at least a 25% lift on their cost per conversion, but they were in a super competitive industry where businesses were paying anything up to £20 for clicks on the head terms, which are the most obvious keywords that everyone was bidding on. We quickly identified to get anywhere near the target cost per lead, we had to avoid those head terms. We started hunting for high intent, high relevant, long tail keywords. So keywords of 3 words plus, and we found some absolute gold in their Search Console data. Now, to be fair, all credit needs to go to the client here for the SEO work that they'd already done, because the first thing we found was a bunch of high intent but low ranking long tail keywords. And they were all questions that potential customers would ask during the sales process. The second thing was that the client had already created pages to target these keywords organically. And they'd also added lead magnets to these pages, which were online quizzes which answered the questions they were searching for before presenting them with an online quote calculator. Now, there wasn't a lot of organic search traffic to these pages, so the next step was an obvious one: scale it up using paid search ads. And that approach was a major contributor to getting their cost per lead down to sub £15 within 6 months, especially when you think that a lot of their competitors would be paying that much just for a click. So that just goes to show that sometimes the solution is already there, it's just hiding in plain sight.
And the final case study here was for a client that was doing free in-person assessments to generate leads. They found that these assessments closed really well to sale, typically 1 in 3 people. But they really struggled to get the right profile of lead consistently. The thing was that the client covered all of England and Wales, and they had a really specific criteria to qualify for the service. So sometimes the client found themselves travelling across the country just to find it was a wasted trip. They tried asking for photos of the issue, which seemed like an obvious solution here, but people just wouldn't submit them. But we knew we had to stick with the strategy of getting people to self-qualify. If people weren't making the effort here to take a quick picture, then we knew we had to take the effort out of the equation. The funny thing is here, the problem actually became the solution. Rather than them having to go out and take the photos, we took the photos to them through a quiz. They would run through a series of questions and choose from a range of images. And then at the end of this, they'd be presented with a score to see whether they qualified for the service. And if they did, then they had a prompt to apply. The idea here was to take all the effort out of the potential customer's hands. And it worked. 60% of the people that took the quiz here were qualified and went on to book an in-person assessment. And the close rate actually stayed at 1 in 3 as well. But the biggest win here was the number of wasted assessments came right down to 0.
So that gives you a few real-world examples of what we mean when we talk about having a strategy behind your ads. The big takeaway is that a strategy simplifies and guides your approach, and most importantly, it makes it more effective. Whether you're looking to make your ads and landing pages hyper-relevant to your audience, or you're looking to carve out a viable approach in a super competitive industry, or you're looking to increase the quality of your leads, or a number of other different similar scenarios. If you found this episode interesting, in the next one we'll be giving you the tools to put this approach to work. We're going to run through exactly how we build strategies for clients here at Webmarketer, so you can follow along and do the same for your own ads.
If you found this useful, please leave us a review. Our goal is to remove the smoke and mirrors from the B2B advertising world. and reviews really help towards this. And if you've got a burning question or you're facing a challenge that you'd like us to explore, please let us know. We really want to make every single episode as useful as possible, and we read every single message. Thank you for listening, and catch you on the next one.